you got to keep up with the trends both internally and externally?
Yeah, there's actually absolutely no standards whatsoever, but that's a whole other topic.
being polite.
Yeah, no. I've been involved with data standards in that market for 10 years and have made absolutely no progress. But yeah, there's extreme amount of flexibility and customization. When you have enterprise clients like Sears Holdings or Southern Company, I mean, these are monster organizations. They want it their way. So you have to be able to configure it. And you also, with the platform, we have the ability to empower our customers to also do some of their own configuration as well without shooting themselves in the foot. So that's one of many reasons that obviously we build on the platform.
Great. Thank you. Chris, a lot of people know you. Very successful career. Callidus, on-premise software. You founded your current company. What is the reasoning on the SaaS decision-making, especially for that space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did spend 6.5 years at Callidus. I left there as the Senior Vice President of Operations. I was running all of worldwide sales, marketing, and business development. And it was my teams that were responsible for taking the company from zero to a $100 million run rate, which is ironically where they are still today. And what I was frustrated with as a salesperson of a public company was customers being frustrated with me that they had to pay for a CD, upwards of $1 million, $1.5 million, and then pay IBM or Accenture to install it, and it would take a year or a year and a half. And then by the time they got finished with the install, we'd be on a different version, and they'd have to either start the whole process over again or lose out on the upgrade on the things that were new in the new version. And I just always felt bad for the customers so much. And we had all these engineers, all these Java engineers, and I used to be so frustrated because we couldn't get new stuff out. And I'd go down and ask why, and they'd tell me, well, because all these engineers are just managing all the different versions that we have. They're not being able to focus on new stuff. And so we certainly embraced 5 years ago the SaaS multi-tenancy in the cloud architecture. And now every engineer I have is all focused on one version. We only have one version. No customer can ever be stranded. There is no one of the things that also frustrated me was this. I felt like there was this balance of power that shifted when the customer wrote me a check for $1 million. And all of a sudden, we were off to the next customer to find the next million. And the customer was kind of like, well, what about me? You guys told me we'd get it installed in 8 months, and it's taken 12 or 15. But the culture was, what could we do? I mean, it was the go-go days of Siebel and everything, and it was all about getting the next $1 million license. In the SaaS world, it's so different. Culturally, we have to keep every customer for 10 years. And we know that, and it's ingrained in every employee's head. And so what our engineers are doing, what our services people are doing, what our support people are doing, everything is focused around customer service. And that's only because of the SaaS model, the fact that we only support a single version and every customer's on it. No one can ever be stranded. Mm-hmm. So those were the reasons that we chose to go SaaS, which, as you said, I won't use your colorful words, but pretty not much a no-brainer for us.
Stupid is a technical word we're going to use in our Salesforce with collateral starting next week. So really time to market, time to change, keep up with the end user demands, similar to what Bob said, but in your space.
Absolutely.
Great. Jeremy, so obviously your company's been around for many years, previous company, established, on-premise, financial software, very successful. You guys took a strategy of coexistence for a while, or you still do, where you decided there's a market for SaaS along with on-prem. What was some of the thinking around doing the coexistence and obviously eventually moving to an all SaaS model in the new company? Some thoughts behind that.
Well, I guess the coexistence comes from the fact you can't not declare your heritage.
Right.
But the world is moving on very rapidly, and the way customers want to deal with companies now that provide applications to them, they're used to now using applications that they can consume quickly, that meet point solutions, that are more akin to a consumer app almost than what we traditionally see as business apps. So we always thought when we set out to build our what it was on demand when we started, and then it was SaaS, and then it became cloud. So when we set out to build our cloud accounting solution, we started looking at how we could build that as cost effectively as possible. When we started out, our developers came up with their own model, which was to build a platform, which obviously would presumably look something like Force.com. They didn't get a chance to do it because we couldn't afford to spend the 2 elapsed years and the 50 at least man years that they estimated it would take to build. Fortunately, we found Force that saved us from that. Now, I think as you look forward, as we invest in our product, we don't have to invest in the underlying infrastructure. And that's something that's completely different from the on-premises world, where every time you have to iterate on new versions of database and operating system. We're just relying now on Salesforce to create that platform. And you look at those announcements this morning, things like new UI, well, when that gets flipped on, our products will have a new UI. We won't have to recode it. And look at the chatter integration and stuff like that. That will just come out of the box. If you're building on-premises products, you're just never going to get that.
So the core components that you can leverage from the platform, highly beneficial.
Yeah, my advice is you leverage everything you can on the platform. The idea is not to be proud and think you should build something if you can build it using the tools on the platform. So forget about workflow because the platform handles it. Forget about security, the multi-tenant engine. Just use everything on the platform. And then you benefit much faster from the investment that Salesforce make in both the underlying platform and the Salesforce apps that inherit that from the platform.
So the ROI gets pretty quickly visible.
Well, if you think about the sort of resources we would have had to put in to build some of those announcements that came out this morning, and the same for Spring 09 and the same for Spring 10 when it comes, we'd need a development team of hundreds to do it. But our customers will get all the value that's there, and our developers will get the value effectively free of charge. Well, not quite free of charge, but effectively free of charge.
All right, switching topics. So obviously, when you started your company, you looked at other platforms, and there's one or two in the market I've heard. Nothing that exciting like Force. But what was some of the comparison? And this is unrehearsed, so it's not like you're reading a script. And what are some of the big ticket items that made you choose Force over the other platforms?
So just a quick context of what we'd done in the past. So we'd actually created a contract management system company many years before Aptus. And we did it traditional software, traditional architecture, maybe some progressive things around XML, and did everything probably like Bob in his first company, having to raise huge amounts of capital to get that entire stack done. And if you look at the investment in the first couple of years of where you're putting that money, most of it is not functionality. I mean, we all understand this, and that's part of the Force.com discussion, but it's the facts. So you end up with a relatively weak functional product with maybe a reasonable platform. And when we saw what Salesforce was doing with platform, now remember this is pre-Force.com, so pre-commercialization of your platform, we were very, very intrigued with the configurability, with just some of the components that would allow us to focus on our domain, which is contract management. And so we played around with that and really decided that we could create an app that would be functionally very rich, deficient, which is what we have to create, that's our code block, but on this platform that would give us unbelievable competitive advantage. All our competitors were public companies, traditional architectures. We would come out the blocks with all of the Force.com capability coupled with our domain expertise, 16 languages, integration capability, sub-second response times, all the things you tout for Salesforce, we get subsumed in our application. So we went from zero to an application that was vastly superior to everybody. And that was looking at other technologies like .NET. We contemplated .NET because our developers had that background, some Java-based things. But the speed of development, which I know we tout and we say it's true, was remarkable. And all the development focused specifically on functionality, which is what customers pay for at the end of the day. They don't care about the plumbing aspect.
It's a good point. I get to talk to a lot of our partners worldwide who have existing development talent on .NET and Java, which have been around for a while. And initially they're not familiar with Force, which is just, it's a platform that they may not have tried it out. But it's amazing how quickly developers get the platform. I've actually had a couple of partners who have taken developers who've never worked in Force and in 3 weeks built applications. So, it's essentially, the scalability, the logic, the ease of use, the class structure, everything else. Jeremy was saying the developers really accelerate the development on Force.com. So Glenn, same question for you. I know you guys were also .NET. You looked at that for your product. What was some of the business, the technology thinking when you were looking at platforms that you had to choose?
Okay, well, we still have the demand tools, which is a .NET-based application.
Product, right.
And when we saw that, when I first saw Apex Code, and I'm a code head by trade, I'm the guy that develops the demand tools, I saw it and said, this is fantastic, because we knew there was a need for real-time deduplication in Salesforce. Everybody wants it. It was the #1 idea on the IDEaXchange. We said that if we wanted to do that, we would have to host a lot of iron. There'd be a lot of cost, servers, to do this. And we realized it just didn't make sense. Then we saw Force.com and said, well, this is actually pretty good, because now all of a sudden Salesforce is going to be hosting the servers for me. Salesforce is running the code for me. All I have to do is write the code and collect the checks. So that's what made the big decision, is that the infrastructure exists. Mm-hmm. You don't have to build an infrastructure. Salesforce has it for you, and it's there. And everything that was said before about upgrades, it's beautiful. Now, our big challenge was, okay, we've got this .NET code, and we still support it. We want to move it over to Apex. And the first thing I would say is that the actual Apex code conversion was very easy. .NET, moving over to sort of a Java-esque Apex code, very, very simple. The SOCL statements are the exact same. The queries to the database are the exact same. So that was a piece of cake. So moving it over was a very, very short-term process. The challenge really was having to deal with the governors inside of Force. And there's a good reason for it, is because they don't want you creating lousy code and spinning it up and actually eating too many cycles at the data center. Right. That's really where the biggest challenge we found, was trying to make sure that we could build it properly, and it was working for Salesforce. But honestly, moving over, it was just an easy decision, because no infrastructure, and moving it from .NET was surprisingly easy. And
the developers who made the switch, it was pretty straightforward. They had some learning curve. How did that go? Oh, you were the developer.
I was the developer.
Okay.
So I did it. So I saw it up there, and I got my first dev account, figured, okay, we'll spin this up, started looking at it, made a few calls, a few questions on the community site, and I'd say within 2 or 3 days, there was some functioning code. And then I got smart and hired somebody else to take it over. But overall, I would say if you're currently a .NET junkie, .NET's great. It's got some fantastic things to it. But anybody that's developing .NET, especially in the server side, you know the issues you run into. Porting it over, yeah, you'll run into some hiccups when you're actually doing the governors, but overall, it's a very smooth transition.
Great. And for those of you who haven't been, we have a whole section in the exhibition ground. We have Force.com experts that literally make you build an application. Clearly, Glenn's an expert, so he doesn't have to go there, but I highly recommend. It's truly hands-on. You can go home and be a hero and build an application for yourself, so definitely recommend that. All right, so we've talked about the logic for moving to SaaS. Obviously, a lot of you sitting in the audience either have that business strategy or looking to go to SaaS. Hopefully, it's a no-brainer. We've talked about why these guys, some of our companies have picked Force. What is the reasoning? Now let's switch gears into going to market, because once you built your product, I mean, we've heard the famous line, don't go with build it and they will come. That strategy doesn't work so well sometimes. And this new model of delivering applications on the cloud with all the new dimensions of integration, vertical segments that the CEOs are attracting. Let's talk a little bit about how the marketing and demand generation, especially Bob, I mean, your product is in a very, pardon the pun, risk-averse space. You're selling
you
risk.
Could say that.
Yeah, I could say that. And you walk into a Sears or one of these large companies and you ask them to put lots of sensitive information about their company on a cloud platform. Walk me through how that was, how come you attracted some great customers, which is exciting, and what are some of the challenges you had to deal with?
Yeah, and it's, we've been around for 2 years and 4 months now.
Wow.
And we actually, when we first started marketing and selling, we actually didn't talk about the platform at all, because one of the challenges is that the brand can be confusing. People are like, what, you log into Salesforce.com, what's all that about? So we actually didn't talk about it a lot, and that was also for competitive reasons. And so now that we've gotten a lot of traction and we're doing well, we talk about very openly, you see it on our website, that type of thing. And obviously it helps us. It helps us enormously. So we're a young company. You have to know your industry. You got to be, you have to be an insider. I've been in this industry for over 15 years. Some of the people who work with me have been in it over 20. So there's no substitute for knowing your market, knowing all the hot buttons and all that. If you don't have that, you get blown out of the water. But once you're in there and people are talking about performance, actually, especially in my industry, my competitors, and it's a very competitive market, are having horrific software development and performance problems all over the place. So we just pound them over and over again, hit them over the head with it all the time. And we're very successful doing that. And obviously walking with the platform, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, it's quarter of a second response time, it's this, that, it's, you know, we say it's the most secure, you know, business environment available in our market by far. So all the maturity and everything that we have with the platform, we take full credit for that, and it allows us, it's one of the reasons we're successful.
Great. I know for a fact you guys respond to RFPs, and your competitors, they're $1 billion companies. It's amazing at the size of your company that you're able to obviously get that deal done. I mean, that to me is, you know, a successful story of its own. It sounds like the benefits of the platform and your execution and, you know, getting the implementation and the benefits is definitely a big advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously our knowledge, our own reputation in the industry, but also, you know, a good, solid strategy around marketing. But then the platform backs us up. I mean, it's right there. Right. My salespeople aren't scared something's going to happen. I mean, I think, you know, anyone who's been around doing this stuff, and your salesperson goes down in flames because there's some bug or something in the system, I mean, that just doesn't happen to us. It just doesn't happen. I mean, it's totally reliable.
Sell with confidence.
I mean, we take it for granted.
Right. All right.
And that is a wonderful thing.
Well, you guys have done really well, and especially with the customers you showed up on stage on the slides. It's very impressive. So keep up. Chris, what about in your business in terms of go-to-market, you know, demand generation, just difference from your previous careers and now? What is the model?
Yeah, I think the single biggest question I get from different, you know, younger CEOs that are thinking about starting a company or getting into SaaS or just starting off, and they're thinking about whether they want to get in the AppExchange or they want to, you know, build something on the Force. It's always about this go-to-market strategy. When I raised money, we've raised $57 million. Every time we go to raise money, you know, for 5 years, the first question is, how are you going to go to market? And it's changed for us over time because when we, up until this point today, I mentioned to you earlier how we revolutionized our space by going from on-premise to on-demand. And that was 5 years ago, and we've been doing a good job at that. And having Salesforce as our early customer and great partner has been fantastic in terms of going to market. But the problem with it has been that we solve a complex problem. We solve the compensation for large sales forces, and there's generally a 8 to 12 week implementation process. And so what we found is it's been difficult for the sales reps within Salesforce who are not used to that kind of implementation to help us sell and get traction. And so as a result, we've done very well as a company for 5 years selling to large companies, mid-size to larger enterprises. But what the Force has allowed us to do is build an application and revolutionize our space yet again. And so when Mark talked today and showed, I think, 67,900 customers, you know, historically, we've only been able to sell to a relatively small percentage of those. Now, with this Force.com app that we've built and announced at this show, which has 0 footprint install, we can sell to a company that has 3 sales reps, or 30, or 300. And so from a go-to-market perspective, you know, we get to cheat a little bit because our customers are salespeople getting paid commission, right? So when we go and hobnob with the Salesforce sales reps, they get our stuff because they get paid through exactly, for one. And for two, they're talking to our customers every day, basically. And so we really believe that the Force platform, combined with this go-to-market strategy of using Salesforce, and I think it's important to note, you should not go into this and think that you're going to just go build an app and the Salesforce's Salesforce is going to go sell your app. It's not going to happen. I don't know how many apps you have now, but it's probably 1,000 or more.
Close to 1,000.
And nor should you expect it to happen. Right. But that doesn't mean you don't get the leverage of it. And if you build an app that people care about, that has value, then your customers will benefit from it. And if it's good for them and it's good for the Salesforce people at Salesforce, then they will help you. And they do. And we've seen that countless times. We're very, very tight partners that way. And I think that this Force thing is just kind of taking that to the next level for us. So we're really excited about the next go-to-market for now the 100 and less subscriber count companies.
Great. And I think the common theme for Bob and you are subject matter IP is important. You guys both own the IP. You understand the space. You know what the application's all about.
I think that's a very important point. I think that, you know, the other cautionary advice I would give you is, you know, the Force platform has been a breeze for us from I'm not, Glenn.
You don't write code? You're not a programmer?
I'm not a programmer, and I don't pretend to be one. I can go on AppExchange, though, and change our listing and, you know, put some marketing
You're the
stuff.
man.
But I cannot do that. But what I hear from our engineers is, to your point, we've taken Java engineers and made them Force engineers in like 30 days. And they were not believers at first. These folks are dyed-in-the-wool Java people, and they're very skeptical. And I come back and talk to them a month later, and they're like, "Chris, this is unbelievable. We're iterating every 24 hours." You know, and I look at the demo of the product, and I say, "I don't like that button. I want it to be this way or that way." And the next day, I'm seeing it done. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Java guys will tell me you can do that, but I've come from the Java side for years. It took me forever to be able to see things nowhere near the iterations that we can make, which just makes the product that much better, that much sooner.
Right. Great. So just going to the selling side, Jeremy, I know leveraging the Salesforce ecosystem, just like, you know, Chris just mentioned, obviously we have common customers. You know, you sell to a market segment that we sell to. Walk us through how do you leverage the Salesforce ecosystem, whether it's sales side, marketing side, or AppExchange, or all of the above?
First question, there were people in the audience, aren't there, who are thinking of building an application on Force? Is
It's 50-50.
50-50. So the first thing I'd say, talking about leveraging the ecosystem, if you go and build a cloud application on your own platform or on another platform, you're going to stand and put your hand in the air when you've finished it and go and start looking for customers. Whereas, of course, what you can see here is 19,100 potential customers for all our applications walking around the building. With Salesforce's support having us here, you know, you're just not going to get that if you build your own platform. You're just going to be one of somebody else. And that leads into the second part, which is, Jay wanted to see your area of the business, but actually it's not just the ecosystem that includes Salesforce, it's the ecosystem that includes other partners. Mm-hmm. So I was previously around a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We were one of the top 5 partners globally, but we were still one of 375,000 Microsoft partners. So getting any space in that is very difficult.
Yes.
You're all competing with other partners within that ecosystem, and actually you're competing with the person that owns the ecosystem, because I build finance and accounting applications, and so does Microsoft, so I'm competing with the people that own the platform. So what we did was we looked at Salesforce. We wanted to build finance and accounting. Salesforce doesn't go near that area, and the Salesforce applications kind of stop when it gets to what we like, which is debits and credits. So what we did was we looked at the whole ecosystem of how we could build an application that was an integral part of Salesforce and appeared to our customers as an integral part of Salesforce. And then, of course, Salesforce salespeople are interested in that, because when they've got a customer with a requirements list for all these different things, like, you know, I want risk or I want commissions, or, you know, they're going to come to the partners to fill that out. So that creates part of the ecosystem. The next thing is we've got the AppExchange. We get about 30% of our leads via the AppExchange. So Salesforce is equivalent of the Microsoft App Store. We're there, we're published. I wasn't expecting at this stage of our evolution to have customers in 12 countries. We're only directly marketing into 3. But we have customers in 12 countries, and they found us through the AppExchange. I'm a Salesforce customer, and I want an integrated finance and accounting application. They're going to find me. So the ecosystem as well, the partners are working together to link their applications together, and we're going to create a new sort of business system in this, where the partners are building best-of-class applications that are using Force as the backbone to natively bring it all together. So it's a great place from all those things and the ecosystem, unless you're going to build a finance and accounting system, and then it's a terrible place to be.
I think the other key message that you're saying is that the buying process for a SaaS application is a little bit different. You know, it's online. People want to try it, look at the collateral. No, there's no salesperson doing a demo on site per se. So leveraging a tool like AppExchange is very powerful. It's your marketing tool to not only Salesforce customers, but then beyond. And I think Jeremy's company's done a great job making sure all the content is uploaded there as well.
Yeah, so you have to focus on the content using the different parts. So learn to use the AppExchange. It took us several goes to get it right. Because it's you have to experiment with it and see what people are searching for around your applications. There are other things to use, like Trial Force for doing 30-day trials. Although I would say that increasingly, as applications get bigger, trials actually become more complicated and can actually slow the sales process down. Okay. So I know trials are a cloud application thing, but be careful with it and understand how you use it, because we found that actually in some cases we are losing opportunities because our trial, of course, I'm selling a multi-company, multi-currency accounting system. Right. You know, how do you take a 30-day trial and make that work? Right. It's a tough thing for someone to do. So, great. But online demonstrating, webinars, AppExchange, making sure Salesforce events. If you learn where all the Salesforce events are and book a slot at them, you need to put that in your budget, but it's a good place to be.
Thank you. Thanks for the lead into the Salesforce events. I know that Aptus has been very active with our co-marketing events. I think you've seen good results where we have driven some of those events to educate our install base. Talk us through the co-marketing with our partner team and how has that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. So we think of the go-to-market component in two components. There's the customer acquisition component, and then there's the physical execution, the deal execution, engaging, making sure you're winning your deals. In the customer acquisition component, we do a lot of joint activities with you. We actually, I believe it was March this year, did a joint webinar where we drew more people to that webinar than any of your corporate events. So it was a new space.
So you had too many leads, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, there's a difference between attendees and leads, but that's a separate discussion. So we do a lot of activities. I will say one of the sort of features, if you want to call it from a go-to-market perspective, is every one of our users has to have a Salesforce seat. So an existing Salesforce customer, an AE, is pretty incentivized to do something in an account, because in buying Aptus, we get introduced to legal, procurement, other organizations who do not have a Salesforce seat. Right. So there's a very natural incentive structure that would allow that execution to unfold. It's taken longer than we've expected in that area, I will say, because the AEs do have to focus on selling their core product, but we do bring a lot of net new seats to Salesforce because of that component. But the second component, which to us is equally important, perhaps more, is in the deal execution itself. And this comes back to the Force.com platform. Because of the ease of configurability, the way we can change things, even change language in the user interface literally in 20 seconds, we use this very devisively and are competing in our deals. So we'll go into a client and we'll say, not, here's what our tool can do. We'll say, give us one of your contracts. What is your process? We will model it, which we know is very difficult to do on traditional architected platforms because it requires lots of resource, lots of sales engineers to set that up, whereas we have our sales guys doing that directly. So we not only use Salesforce from a customer acquisition standpoint, but the platform allows us to be very, very aggressive in our deal cycle, and our win rates are very high as a result of that.
Great, thanks.
Can I just add one I forgot, Jay, one?
You can say whatever you want.
Talking about the ecosystem and events like this, I spent some time on our booth last night, and we were logging a lead on average every 45 seconds when it opened yesterday. So, I mean, what other event can you go to where you can log at that rate?
45 seconds,
every
that's
45.
fast.
Now, I don't know whether they kept that going all evening, because I left them too, but when I was there, we were timing it at 45 seconds.
That's good information. Thank you. So I know you talked about your company, small company, 7 employees. You guys are $4 million in revenue, is that right?
It's not bad.
I mean, that's amazing. So, I mean, what are some of the inside tips you have on driving revenue, market demand? What's the secret?
I'd say the first thing that we did right was we are self-funded. So there was no money involved in this, 100% self-funded, so the money is ours. So it's very, very profitable in that case. Owning 100% of your IP, also hugely important. You don't want to have to pay royalties to anybody. I'd say probably the best thing that we did was that we bet on a winning horse. We sat there and we looked at all the different systems out there. We were looking at different ones to develop for, and we bet on Salesforce because we saw where it was going, and that was the most successful thing that we did. And then we continued to grow with it, and then decided that we're not going to try to develop for any other CRM system. We're not developing for NetSuite. We're not doing Sugar. We're not doing those other ones. We're focusing on the person that has the 80 of the 80-20 in this particular space. But I'd say a few things that we did do right was on the marketing side was, and it's a very difficult place to market inside this area. It's totally non-traditional. But the areas that we were successful on was one, Dreamforce. Dreamforce is the best investment you can possibly make in marketing. The other one nobody mentions but has been really great for us is Google AdWords. Very inexpensive, but a great way to get your name out there. And the other one is get to know the user groups and the CSMs in Salesforce. Because our customers are all existing Salesforce customers, generally ones that have been using it for 6 months or longer. So the CSMs will help you because they have customers with problems. We solve the problems. We can help them continue using Salesforce. The user groups are also the absolute best way to meet existing users, and they're your keen admins. They're the ones that want to take your application, use it to improve their data. And that's also been a really great area where we've made a lot of inroads and a lot of effectively free marketing for our application.
So this is a great point. A lot of our customers belong to regional groups. It's like any other software company. We have smaller events, smaller than Dreamforce, called CloudForce. And these are really regional events all over the world where partners get to see our customers and partners present. And I know that all of you presented at CloudForce as well. So depending on what size bite you want to take, I highly recommend leveraging Salesforce's marketing machine to help you reach your message out to our install base as well. All right, everyone's awake. No one's napping except the person at the back. So, all right, so we're going to wrap up, and then you guys can ask some tough programming questions to Glenn. But before we do that, just words of wisdom. You know, bright-eyed CEO sitting there with a great idea. Next 3 years, I want to be like one of you, build a $5 million, $10 million company. What is the sort of closing statement from you, from each one of you?
Well, that's a great question. I think some of us were talking about this a little earlier. One of the mistakes that I think have been made by some people starting off is that it's you kind of say, well, look, I got the software, mostly built. It's done. That's all I really need to do. Right. That's not the case. You're checking off one of many boxes. Who am I stealing that from? Is that from you? Yeah, sorry. I'll give you credit for that.
Stealing is allowed.
Yeah, so basically, you're handling one of many things. I mean, to be able to say, wow, our risk associated with software development is mostly mitigated. Not to use a risk management term or anything, but that's the case. Right. So that's really incredible. But still, I mean, you got to know your market, like we said before. You got to market like crazy. For me, this is not my event at all. The only risk managers that are here are the ones that are actually my clients that are here to learn more. So, if you're in an entirely different market, you got your work cut out for you. And you got to be careful because this company you're partnering with is Salesforce.com, and that can be really confusing. So you got to use the Force.com brand as much as possible because that's also a trap that you can easily fall into.
All right, great. Chris, words of wisdom?
Well, I guess what I would just say is, by virtue of the fact that you've sat here and listened to us, I think you've taken the right step in the right direction. I would continue to encourage the conversation with people that have been through it, so there's some learning there. We can share, more details around what we've learned and specifically on building. I think that you have to go into it with your head up and your eyes open and with the right set of expectations. I think there's people that just think it's a panacea and, it's going to be easy and it's just you're going to put your shingle up and you can't take your orders fast enough. And I think if you think that way, you're going to be very disappointed. I think if you look at it as a multi-pronged approach and you build on the Force and you work with Salesforce to work the system and rise above the 1,000 apps that are out there so you don't get washed into the masses and you stand apart and you have reason to stand apart and we talked about all the shows. I mean, we attend every show we can. We do every kind of event that we possibly can. And for us, it's a no-brainer because it's an audience that is already predisposed to on-demand. You don't have to have the silly conversation about on-premise versus on-demand. The fact that they're here, they're probably already a customer. They already get that message. So I just encourage you to use this show to talk to people and find out the lessons learned and make sure that you have the right expectations so that you're not disappointed and getting upset with these guys because they're giving you all the tools, but it takes a little bit of work and you got to navigate through some landmines or you're going to have some pain.
All right, words of wisdom. Jeremy, you've been with us for a while. You got some words of wisdom.
Okay, well, how long have we got?
14 seconds.
So very quickly, the guy said it, know your space, but you need to build a creative application. Salesforce will pay you much more attention if you really leverage their technology. Somebody last year said they were going to be a partner and wanted to show me their app, and they were building a procurement application, and it was 3 tabs long, and they changed an opportunity and called it an order, and that's not an application. You're going to get 30 seconds of airtime from Salesforce, and you're going to get no airtime from Salesforce customers because these guys really know that platform. So you've got to be creative in the way you use it, and you've got to be creative in the way that you use Salesforce and the Salesforce resources and events like this. And I think the other thing to remember is that SaaS, just because it's cloud or SaaS or on-demand, it doesn't sell itself. So you've got to plan in building the creative app, but also how you're going to take it to market. And you should have a really clear view of that before you start. Otherwise, you'll stumble around to start with before you actually gain traction. So have those two things balanced when you make your investment decisions.
That's great advice. Kirk, anything to add?
So our focus, we have a pretty simple model, I think, and that is we focus on domain expertise, and Bob had mentioned this, and I think you can't overemphasize it. The building on force.com takes the emphasis away from everything except domain expertise, i.e. functionality. So having deep functional capability in your space, really important, because you've got the plumbing. 2, in our case, is profitability, and we can hear some examples of that. For us, we question everything. The traditional software model, from how we market, how our sales guys sell, whether we have SEs or not, who does the demos, where we spend our time, all of the traditional components, we question everything and focus on profitability. And for us, that's been the single, probably most important thing that we've done, put us really in an incredible position. And then the other usual components on top of that, go to market with an incredible partner, all the other aspects from a software perspective. But really, domain expertise, focus on profitability, we tend to find the other things take care of themselves.
So the sales model gets altered significantly as well, and as you manage volume sales.
We have really deep domain expert sales guys who have incredible presence in front of customers, who spend 90% of the time on the phone.
Okay.
They don't even visit customers. 2/3 of our customers we've never seen. And we're talking Delta, we're talking large organizations. The whole model has really changed. And it wasn't something we'd focused on, it transpired. As we executed our processes, this happened. Good part because of Salesforce, but a good part because it is a new era. It's a new time.
Good advice. Selling in the cloud.
Okay. I mean, I think I have 2 key pieces of advice. 1, do one thing and do it great. Own your particular area. Find something you want to be involved in and be the best at it and own it. The second thing I would say is make customer service a religion. It is hugely important that you pander to your customers. Main reason because we're not selling them a $50,000 product that we're never going to see them again. We're selling them a $10,000 product that we're going to sell them again next year for $10,000 and again next year for $10,000. So you have to make sure that you maintain the greatest level of customer service. And also, don't be afraid to fire a customer, because sometimes that's a good idea too.
Okay. That's very good advice. Customer service in the SaaS delivery model is so key. It's unlike this on-prem model where you ship a CD and collect a check. These are customers for life, and as you know, everybody here on stage has addressed that. Salesforce ourselves, we invest a lot of our time and money in customer service. All right, since everybody's kind of semi-awake, mostly, why don't we take some questions? We'll start over there. And all the names are in the sequence, so if you want to ask specifically to somebody or me or whatever. Just need a mic. I'm going to be the guy who does the American Idol, whatever his name is.
Just say, in general, going around, what percentage of your inbound leads do come from AppExchange, and what % of your net new revenue is coming from the AppExchange platform?
I'd say in terms of the revenue that comes from our Salesforce customers, or the leads that actually come off of the AppExchange?
Leads that come off of AppExchange, and if you could add color on the Salesforce.
Okay, I would say probably for our revenue, probably at least, a huge portion of our revenue is from existing customers. So it's, you have 70% is from existing renewals. But of the new business, I'd say well over 50% comes from the AppExchange. And the rest come from either CSMs or from customer recommendation, or customer goes to a new client. But hugely important to us is our AppExchange listing.
So in our case, it's quite different. I'd say probably 15% at best. There used to be an old AppExchange where we had a higher hit rate, and then the AppExchange was changed, and now lead rate dropped, and I'm sure it's because we didn't optimize ourselves on AppExchange. Yep. But we also have another paradigm where we call feeding yourself. So even though we have a tremendous partner and tremendous capability of potential customer acquisition, if you don't know how to go out, execute your own deals, no one is going to feed you. They may help along the way. So even though we don't get a huge amount from the AppExchange, we do generate a lot of demand in Salesforce customers, so we do a lot of those programs. We try to drive them to AppExchange, but I'm sure AppExchange will be improved over time.
So my Salesforce dashboard on my BlackBerry tells me that 52% of our leads are from the web, 18% from events, including Salesforce events, and 32% from the AppExchange. But of course, you can't take that as fixed, because somebody that comes on the booth today might then go back and search on the AppExchange. So you can't take it as fixed, but that's live data, so there you go. Power of the cloud.
Do you guys want to add something? I can borrow my microphone. You're good? Yeah, you guys can add.
I think
we have 6 minutes.
It obviously varies. For me, it's zero. I'm in a different market. Your risk managers are not poking around AppExchange. That's just reality. I mean, they got insurance renewals and stuff to worry about. It's totally different world. But I would say, with that said, the Salesforce account executives on very large enterprise deals like what we work, and we're talking to CIO, the CFO, very high-level people.
Enterprise sales.
Yeah, enterprise sales, and of course they get pretty interested in that. But also getting help where maybe we do a data center tour for some of these people, and then they have an opportunity then to sell other things in the organization. So it's a very good relationship, especially on large deals. But we get no leads at all from really this market. It's just a different market.
So Chris, you get a lot of hopefully traffic.
Yeah, we get a lot of traffic. I mean, I don't have my iPhone to look at my dashboard. So, but
extra points for Jeremy.
Yeah, very good. Very nicely done. Show up. But it's a high percentage, and we expect it to be a very high percentage of the new Express product that we just launched today.
Great. We're almost down to the time, so if somebody has a question, yeah, please. You can speak in my mic. Just don't get super close. I have a cold.
My question is, with today's large enterprise applications, you've got ISVs and consulting companies that are fairly in their own camps. With this type of a offering, with the application being so easy to build yourself and becoming more and more easy to build, do you see the traditional? Is that an old paradigm that we should be throwing away, that we have ISVs and consulting partners, or is it going to be more blurred? And is it going to be really more just companies that really have their own intellectual property and do consulting together, and there'll be lots and lots of these kind of applications? Or do you see the ISV market more maturing and like it is right now?
Great question, by the way. Very good question. I'm not allowed to answer, so I'll let you guys answer.
Sorry if I start on that one.
You can start anytime.
One comment, it's really interesting. I'm amazed at how many consulting partners there are out there that build really great applications on the platform, and they get lots of money, to build those apps, and then that's it. How about productizing it and getting the recurring revenue forever? Right. So I think, there's been some blurring, but I don't think that's a good thing, at least not for the people building these incredible applications. I say turn them into products. Maybe, do a couple of one-offs here and there, productize them, and get that recurring revenue. And, what you charge has absolutely nothing to do with what Salesforce charges. It depends on your market. So, we're in a market where, it's big game hunting. We have much more traditional enterprise software sales. We go for big deals, a lot of users, very, very complex. And the fact that Salesforce is out there charging whatever per month for CRM is completely irrelevant.
Well, the model is changing, and the ratio of the work, what people spend money on consulting changes. No one's installing software, adding patches. But back to Bob's point, there's still the business consulting that's pretty important. And we have partners that are both consulting partners and, back to Bob, and ISVs. They've got an application that's commercial. So there's blurring.
The one thing I would say is we actually use the individual consulting partners, the Estadias and Blue Wolf, as part of a sales channel. 20% of our sales right now goes through an Estadia, Blue Wolf, or one of the other consulting partners. So it actually is a really good relationship between us. They'll do training for us. They'll do consulting services for our customers using our tool, because we're not into that. We're a software development organization. So I can see that growing. I come from the CAD space where 80% of our revenue came from the channel. And I see them as a great opportunity as a sales channel for us.
Well, you got one more comment?
Sure. I think it's actually a very good question, because we see a lot more SIs, other partners saying, well, wait a second, we can build that for you, right? And then becomes a pseudo conflict in an account. The fact of the matter is, this is the point about domain expertise. So in a space, you have to have really deep domain expertise and then build what you need for that expertise. And if you have that, we're not concerned about it. There is definitely a blurring, but we're not concerned about it, because there's not enough consulting partners who can develop the amount of deep domain expertise across all application spaces. If you're in a space, as Jeremy pointed out, perhaps in that procurement app, where it's a light config that can do it, you should probably be worried, because there is little domain around that, and it can be copied. And so there may be a natural selection of applications from simple to config, not requiring much domain, which perhaps will be built, or built by customers themselves, in fact, to deep domain expertise apps that really are much more difficult.
Also, just to add, we've recently added service listings on AppExchange. So service partners who build solutions on Force or one of our partners are getting listed. So you can now search for consulting partners by a particular application type, which is, I think, a huge thing for our customer base. And we're seeing that number really rise for business consulting. So I apologize, we have to cut it off. We're out of time. First of all, I want to thank you guys for sitting through. Please stop by the pavilion, and a round of applause for our CEOs who spent time talking to you. Thank you very much.